Run. Just run. Don't look at the sky, don't look at the bodies, just run. Imagine holding a piece of paper in your hand, a dirty, crumpled piece of paper that weighs nothing but carries the weight of 300 human lives. It is November 11th, 1918. The time is 10:45 a.m. In exactly 15 minutes, the Great War, the war to end all wars, is officially over. The politicians have signed the papers, the generals have shaken hands, but in a small, forgotten sector of the Western Front, nobody knows. A captain named Miller is preparing to blow the whistle for one last suicidal charge over the top at 10:55 a.m. He wants to claim one last hill before peace falls. There is only one person who can stop him, a 19-year-old runner named Arthur. He's the shadow of this front line. He isn't a hero, he isn't a super soldier, he's a terrified boy with a stitch in his side and a message that says, "Cease fire." If he slips, 300 men die for absolutely nothing. Welcome to Shadow Frontlines. This is the story of the runner who raced against the clock and the silence that followed. We often look at history through the eyes of the winners, the generals with medals on their chests, standing in warm rail cars signing treaties. We know about the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. It's a poetic end to a brutal war. But history creates shadows, and in those shadows, the reality was much messier. You see, even though the armistice was signed at 5 a.m. that morning, the order was, fighting continues until 11 a.m. 6 hours of dead time, 6 hours where men were still killing each other, not to win the war was already decided, but simply because the clock hadn't struck the hour yet. Arthur wasn't supposed to be the runner. The original runner was dead, killed by a stray shell casing 2 miles back. Arthur was just a signalman fixing a wire in the mud when the lieutenant shoved the paper into his chest. "Get to Miller's trench. Tell him it's over. Tell him to stand down." Arthur starts running, but this isn't an action movie. He isn't dodging bullets like a superhero. The battlefield at 10:48 a.m. is eerily quiet in some sectors and deafening in others. This is where the psychological horror sets in. As Arthur runs, his mind starts to play tricks on him. He knows the war is over. He knows it, but the bullets snapping past his head don't know that. The sniper hiding in the tree line 300 yards away doesn't know that. Imagine the irony. To survive 4 years of hell, to survive the Somme, to survive the gas attacks, only to be killed 10 minutes before the end. Every step Arthur takes is a gamble with fate. He slips in a shell crater. The water is freezing, smelling of sulfur and rot. He scrambles up, his fingernails tearing into the clay. He checks his pocket. The paper is still there. 10:52 a.m. 8 minutes left. He enters the communication trench leading to the front line. It's clogged with wounded men being carried back. They grab at his legs. "Water," they whisper. "Help me." Arthur has to kick them away. He has to be cruel to be kind. If he stops to help one man, the 300 men waiting to charge will die. He pushes past them, tears streaming down a face caked in gray mud. He becomes a ghost, a shadow passing through their misery, unable to offer comfort, driven only by the ticking of a watch he doesn't even own. 10:54 a.m. Arthur crashes into the forward trench. He's gasping for air, his lungs burning like they're filled with acid. He sees them, the men of B Company. They're lined up on the fire step. Their bayonets are fixed. They look like statues made of fear. Some are praying, some are vomiting. And there is Captain Miller. Miller is a man who loves the war because he doesn't know who he is without it. He wants that hill. He wants a victory on his record before the whistle blows. Arthur scrambles toward him. "Sir, Captain," he screams. Miller ignores him. He raises his whistle to his lips. Arthur grabs the captain's arm, an offense punishable by death. "Sir, the order! Look at the order!" Miller spins around, eyes wild. "Get back in line, Private." "It's over," Arthur screams, waving the crumpled paper. "The Armistice, it's signed. Ceasefire at 11. If you send them over, it's murder." The word hangs in the air. Murder. The other soldiers turn their heads. The tension shifts. It's no longer the Germans they're afraid of. It's the choice their captain is about to make. Miller snatches the paper. He reads it. His face twitches. He looks at his watch. 10:55 a.m., the exact moment the charge was supposed to start. He looks at the hill, the prize he almost had. Then he looks at Arthur, this shivering, muddy boy who just ruined his glory. Miller crumples the paper. For a second, Arthur thinks he's going to ignore it. He thinks Miller is going to shoot him and order the charge anyway. But then, the captain lowers the whistle. "Stand down," he whispers. A collective breath releases from 300 chests. Men slide down the trench walls, weeping. They pull photos of their wives out of their pockets. They light cigarettes with shaking hands. Arthur collapses in the corner. He did it. He saved them. But the war isn't done with them yet. 10:58 a.m., 2 minutes to go. The Germans on the other side don't know. They see movement. They see smoke. A German machine gunner, nervous, pulls the trigger. A burst of fire rakes the top of the trench. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Stray bullets don't care about treaties. One of them ricochets off a sandbag. Arthur feels a punch in his chest. It doesn't hurt, not at first. It just feels like someone shoved him. He looks down. His tunic is turning dark red. 10:59 a.m. The clock strikes 11 a.m. Suddenly, the guns stop. The artillery stops. The shouting stops. The silence that follows is louder than the explosions. It is a heavy, unnatural silence. The birds start singing, a sound these men haven't heard in 4 years. Cheering breaks out down the line. Men are hugging. Captain Miller is shaking hands with his sergeant. But in the corner of the trench, in the shadow of the sandbags, Arthur is getting cold. He watches the celebration. He sees the men he saved laughing, talking about going home, talking about the future. He tries to speak, to ask for a medic, but his voice is just a bubble of blood. His vision tunnels. He sees the sky. It's finally clearing. It's blue. Nobody notices him. In the chaos of peace, the runner is forgotten. He becomes part of the mud, part of the trench, part of the shadow. Arthur's story is fictional, but it is built on a foundation of absolute truth. On the final day of World War I, in the 6 hours between the signing and the ceasefire, there were nearly 11,000 casualties. More men died in those final meaningless hours than on D-Day. History records the generals, it records the treaties, it records the dates. But it rarely records the Arthurs, the runners, the signalmen, the shadows who carried the weight of the world on their shoulders and slipped away before the medals were handed out. This channel, Shadow Frontlines, is dedicated to them, to the stories buried under the headlines, to the psychological battles fought in the dark. Arthur died so 300 men could go home to their families. His name isn't in a history book, but today we remember the runner. If you want to hear more stories from the hidden corners of war, stories of mystery, psychological endurance, and the human cost of conflict, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Frontlines. Next week, we're covering the Ghost Blimp of the Pacific, a crew that took off on a routine patrol and vanished, leaving their airship drifting in the sky. I'll see you in the shadows.